Okay, so let's talk about some other things. Practice and tools. Cartooning involves paper, pens, inks, crayons. Maybe for you it involves a digital screen. I don't know. But what do you start with? And is there any material that you like more? And is there anyone that, particularly to you that gives you a problem or is hard for you to, because they do such different things, they express such different things, the materials and the mediums that are used.
Yeah, I mean, especially since I've started doing these drawings since the first Trump administration, the exact same everything. I use the exact same pad of paper, the
Which is
exact
what
same
kind of
pens.
paper?
I'll show you.
I'm very nerdy about these things. So I love them.
It's this. It's the same
Okay.
exact pen.
Uh,
Uh, I mean, I've never changed.
okay.
Right or wrong. So yeah, this mixed media 11 by 14. It's always the same size, always the same paper. I use micron pens, Prismacolor colored pencils, these markers they're Tombow is the brand. They're kind of like watercolor
Yes, they are.
markers, but
Yeah.
do you know those pens?
No, but I know your work because
Oh, okay.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of different people in the world whose work I like, but I have really come to be someone who most greatly appreciates pen and ink and kind of watercolor drawings. Like Marlene Dumas is one of my favorite visual artists in the world.
Mm.
Um, but you have that quality in your drawings, which is why I think I like them so much. And you also, you know, have more and more and more in my own view of it, but maybe you've always done it, but in terms of my appreciation of your cartoons, you are, I really like drawings that combine roughness and polish and that really challenge the forms or the contours of things that let you be able to gain a sense of dimension that is suggested, that isn't always fully articulated. And so different pens and things can do that, you know what I mean? Which is why I was interested in the question, and
Yeah. I mean, it's always, yeah, always. I mean, I named literally all of the tools I use except for Sharpies and whiteout. That does the entirety of.
right. Yeah.
I don't know how to use anything digital.
Right.
I'm sure it's a fine tool. It's not digital anything
Tactile.
isn't
You
my
like to
strength.
touch the paper, touch the ink, right?
Yeah, very much so. I really, I mean, that's why I'll even use, like I said, I use whiteout, which is not like a useful, not on its face an art supply with a lot of utility, but I love it. I mean,
I
I
think it's
use it
one of the
quite a
most
bit.
exciting things because I love what you can do with both black and white in terms of creating almost like reverse spaces and articulating space. And one a question I had for you was in terms of thinking about space, you tend to really create a lot of space around some of your cartoons. You have a small figure and a lot of space. Has that changed, or do you ever, how do you think about that? Is it just organic and you just make the drawing and that's it? Or do you go like, oh no, that could have been bigger and, you know,
Yeah, I think it varies. Sometimes, like, and this is going back to sort of the way just my approach being very rushed, really, and I don't want to say I don't put a lot of thought into it, but I do operate off of sort of first instinct.
uh-huh.
So the result will be oftentimes after it's done, um, recognizing some of those flaws, like I centered it not quite correctly, or it could have used something to balance a little bit. Um, I think, over time, what I've done most directly is with the drawings I was doing during the first Trump administration, which was very much a very like a structured project where I was deliberately documenting every day
Yeah.
of the Trump presidency with something that happened that day. That was the premise, which is not too dissimilar for what I'm doing now, but the topic will range a little bit, and sometimes I'll draw something on a particular day that relates to something that happened the day before, for example.
Yeah.
Um, in that circumstance, again, the approach was very, very the similar, where it be, the date at the top, a sentence of what had happened, a drawing of the thing, and then I'd put up some quote to give it like historical context or like a little bit of a joke or whatever, however it was applied. And that's just how that project went. And it I it bothers me looking at those drawings now. I can almost not look at them because I hate how busy it is, and how much there's just too much happening. There's no need to have both the sentence describing what happened and the drawing. Which one's doing the heavy lifting? There's
Because
too much.
your editorial eye has improved. You are getting better so that you're able to already get to the core of what it is you want to say and how you want to express it compared to, that's evolving as both an artist and also as an editor, I think. Where you're doing it both visual editing, conceptual editing, thematic editing, and what you want to say.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I'd like to think it's an improve. I mean, I think it's personally, I do feel like it's an improvement. I think, I feel like generally speaking, I've gravitated much more towards a less is more approach where, if you can, to me, art, eh, the most effective art that is trying to convey a point, which certainly is not all of art's purpose or point, is when it doesn't have to necessarily spell it out for you, but it's very visceral and clear in a way.
Yeah, it reads in
And
a minute. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I just that's the stuff that I find most impactful if that's the kind of art it is. If it's something where it's like relating to a specific topic
Yeah.
or something along those lines, I like it to be kind of like just I guess direct in a certain way. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but yeah, less is more. Just
I
like
did want to know, you probably get dozens of ideas every day. I mean, the news is just overwhelming us. Every minute I get ideas for stories probably every 5 minutes, and I maybe do
sure,
one long story a week, and it's just killing me that I can't clone myself and be doing all the other things. So
yeah.
how do you kind of choose? I mean, how many don't get made in your thoughts?
Oh, so many, especially now. And that's one of the other reasons why the thing I did, the Daily Dawn project from the first administration, couldn't happen with this one because that was very much the whole purpose of it was very much to just document because I knew right away, you know, before Trump even got elected the first time, Steve Bannon said the whole, their approach was going to be flood the zone with bullshit. So I
Project
knew,
2025, in my view.
yeah, exactly. I mean, so I knew that the point would be to just barrel roll, to do as much as possible so people would get, burnt out, would not be able to kind of catch everything that was happening. So my endeavor was to try to document as much as I could every single day so that at least I wouldn't forget. I didn't want to like not remember all the stuff that was
I had the same
attempted.
idea, and then I had to let it go pretty early on because it was
Oh,
just so much. I mean, thank God
well,
we were
especially now.
with 25, but yeah, yeah.
I
All right.
mean,
And so just the other thing I was really curious about, and then I want to talk about your actual drawings. You do respond to news that reflects very much headline news. You have a project in mind, which is to say, I'm going to do something every day on Trump or the Trump administration. But what are your own sources of news? Like, what do you, and maybe how have they changed?
oh, they changed a lot. I mean, the first Trump administration, I was going at it again. It was especially at the very beginning, where the first couple months, I would say, there was almost no editorializing, almost no real caricatures of
But
people. I was just drawing them.
drawing,
It was very,
your drawings
yeah,
are
it was,
editorial.
oh, now, for sure. Probably 100%, I would say
You
at the
mean
time.
editorializing in print, you mean, or words, or what?
No, no, no. Like I was trying to keep it very direct. So if something would happen, I'd be like, "This is what happened, and here's a drawing of the thing happening." And I would, and especially this changed several months in, but especially at the beginning, I was just trying to purely document what was happening. So my news sources were sort of intentionally macro. It was, I was trying because I was wanting to document the things that people were seeing.
Yeah,
So it was like, CNN, all these things, MSNBC, even like Fox, just to get a sense of what was being told.
yeah.
And I was just documenting from that level. That definitely changed over time. as my own approach changed. This time around, it's very different. I mean, I don't watch any cable news at all. I mean, I don't, not even out of curiosity. It's kind of all over the place. I do for strict sort of news, a lot of international sources because which I did too during the first administration because I find that to be a really
You talk
fascinating
about something
perspective.
like what? Like the British
Al
paper, Guardian,
Jazeera,
Al Jazeera? Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, the Guardian, which is again, I mean, it's technically international, but just because the perspectives have always maintained a very outside looking in, which I find to be really
Not
fascinating.
just
And I think,
outside, but also countries that have experienced American empire.
well, exactly right. I mean, what I mean, I guess, outside perspective, I mean, truly not a passive observer. Like people with having a very shared, not by us, but a shared experience shared amongst many other people, many other countries, a different perspective on the American enterprise and experience.
Yeah.
Um, and also, especially most recently, just using say Minnesota for example, as a very, I think, helpful example of more of what we'll continue to see, which is on the ground. I mean, journalists by default, people who are not technically journalists, but people who are there like documenting. They're there, you're in, getting information through social media. This is, there's a lot of problems with social media, generally speaking. One thing I do appreciate about it is the rapid, and this can be a downside as well, but the rapid ability to spread information, documentation of things happening.
And
So there's a lot of people I
disinformation. You have
follow.
to check a lot. You have to check a lot of what's not true.
Oh,
Right. More than
absolutely,
before. I mean, it's incredible now. Every time I get something on social media, apart from maybe your drawings and a few other things, I check them to make sure that they're real because it's just amazing to me how much, at this point, I think on Facebook, it's 40% AI generated. It's just remarkable. So we really have to do that, our due diligence, just even for what we would think of are just basic repetitions of news that's coming out. But let me
yep,
just let's have a couple of questions about. I want to talk about the Trump administration before we talk about some of your favorite drawings, which you shared with me. Um, we just talked about journalism. I think that's really important. Today you probably saw. I want to sort of know how you would respond or think about like your real-time work to kind of get a sense of this for me and for our the audience that's going to listen to this or watch this. Today there's several journalists that got arrested.
yep,
Um, Georgia Fort, Don Lemon, Traheen Jean Cruz, and Jamael Lydell Lundy, who were filming a Minnesota protest at a church, I believe it was, and then they were arrested later, like in their homes. And
yep.
now we have Trump's representative, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's gone to say, on social media and other forms, that she's crowing about the fact that she's attacking the First Amendment and that she's putting journalists in cuffs. We also should note, I think, that they are reporters of color. I don't think that's
Yep.
accidental at all. So, first of all, I have three questions. One is, what's your reaction? And how would you, or how will you maybe today express that in a cartoon?
Well, I did a drawing earlier because it was the news I woke up to, and I think there's a lot, like so much that happens, if not all of it. There's a lot happening within it, a lot of things to call out, a lot of things to unpack, and so oftentimes I'll have again like sort of this immediate, just like highly emotional, if not entirely emotional response, that I'll have to just draw and get out of my system. Otherwise, I can't relax. And then over the course of the day, I'll like kind of, think about it more and just sort of, and then usually by the end of the day, I'll do something that's maybe a little bit more surgical in its approach, hopefully. But no, I think you're right. I mean, look, it's one thing. The fact that these are people of color is not lost on me as a reason, but also I think Don Lemon specifically, um, he's a person people know, so it's very much the intention with him specifically. It's supposed to have the chilling effect. It is with all of them, right? It is sort of like the even with the people that the three people that they arrested who went to the church last week or whenever it was 2 weeks ago. um it was a case that was bound to lose, so of course they released them. And but that wasn't the point. The point was it's supposed to have the intention of a chilling effect. It's supposed to quiet people. It's supposed to get. That's the whole premise with all of this. I mean, and that's the way all authoritarianism
So
and
what
fascism
did you
works.
decide to say in your
What's
cartoon?
that?
What did you say in your cartoon?
Oh, again, like I said, there's nothing that's helpful. It was very. I mean, I'll show you because again, it's not. I'm not. But where is it? Again, this is me just being very, very emotional in the moment. It doesn't really do anything, but it's just purely, you know, me having this anger
What is
and
it, what,
emotion.
how does it relate to the arrest in the church? Tell me how.
Lemon for Don Lemon, ice for ice. I mean,
Right.
first of all, it was
Right. And it's
um,
very, very good in the sense that it reads immediately. Like if someone has heard of Don Lemon getting arrested, then they know what you're saying. If they haven't, then they're going to wonder. But there's so many people you're assuming have because it's such a headline, right?
exactly. That's why in a month, this probably won't make sense to a casual observer, right? Like a
But it's
lemon. What
food
is
and right. And
so?
also,
And
but you've compressed it tremendously. You've taken the
well,
symbols that
exactly
are
right.
lemon, but it's also sour, ice, and it's also cold. Fuck, which is a swear word, and then free, which is very positive. Like these are all very powerful images of themselves, even if you're not thinking that so much in your own mind. You've compressed these things that we're all going to bring to that cartoon.
Yeah, and also you have these journalists who are arrested, and under the premise being that they infringed upon the churchgoers' free speech rights. That's the premise, right? That's the act that they're supposedly going to use. That's what they were going to use against the protesters from the other week, and that's what their premise is here. It's just very interesting, and again, it gets pointless to call out the hypocrisy because it's all hypocritical, and it doesn't matter. Like they don't care about the hypocrisy, but it was only a month ago where they rescinded the whole rule of the long held rule of not allowing ICE to enter places like churches.
And
So
and the other thing that's really critical here is that the bulk of people who are representing the administration, who are actually implementing most of these policies, Pam Bondi, Stephen Miller, Russell Vogt, etc., are
mhm,
staunch Christian nationalists
yeah,
who have, talked so much about the fact that churches need to be free, that they need to be able to operate. We know that they very much want them to remain tax free. That's really a major source of fundraising for their political movement. But it is really also delivering a message,
yeah,
right? To say, we are going to attack churches in our own way. They're not protecting the church. They're making the church be a place that is not seen as safe. So it's
sure,
complex as a message, right? Yeah.
yeah.
All right. And so then the next thing is, um, if you think you're going to do another cartoon later in the day, what goes through your mind? Do you even look to see how are people responding to a particular cartoon? Does that even matter to you? And
Oh, no, mine? No,
yeah,
no.
okay,
I mean, it's no.
okay.
What positive or negative? It doesn't really
Fact.
it
Okay.
doesn't matter. I don't
That's what I
know.
assume. I assume. Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you ever think about, or do you know if anyone in the Trump circle, specifically, like I'm talking about the administration, has seen or is reading your cartoons?
I don't know. I doubt
Think
it.
about
I
it?
mean, there's so many other things for them to focus on. I doubt that they really care about cartoons, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't gotten there's no indication for that I've ever had that
Okay.
anyone on their team has seen it.
Right. Do you, does something like today, I mean, arrest of journalists, we have also saw, specifically editorial cartoonists, suffering from or being attacked or indirectly just being attacked in the sense that, for example, Ann Talneas at the Washington Post, she saw her cartoon of, the kind of three tech titans kind of kneeling at the statue of a
Yeah.
giant Trump be suppressed and censored, and to the point where she had to quit the Washington Post. And this is a Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist with a huge following. Is very much delivering a specific message, which is that one, I think it's saying editorial cartoons are incredibly important and incredibly impactful, and they're so dangerous that we need to suppress them, which I think is a kind of silver lining about these kind of events. They really show how important a role they are, just as the role of, Don Lemon and these folks is because they are
Mhm.
documenting the crime, which is
Mhm.
what needs to get suppressed, right? Uh,
Sure.
so that's one part of it. But I have been curious about, one, uh, what are you seeing in terms of the cartoon world? I'm not in the cartoon world, but what are you seeing in terms of the efforts to censor or not the cartoon world? My sense is that whether it's Antalnea's, who immediately opened her own Substack and kind of went to town and has gotten even a greater following than she might have even had at the Washington Post, her response is to say, I'm going to be more public than ever. This is a weapon and I'm going to use it. Or, this is what I have to say and I'm not going to let you set me down. What are you seeing? And particularly, I've been interested in, what you may be seeing in more of the mainstream cartooning world or what you might be, might be your thoughts about this.
I can't really speak. I don't really follow any real cartoonists. I don't like political cartoons, generally speaking. It's not the kind of art. Um, I like art that tends to have be political. I'll give you an example of me like for me like the perfect political cartoon, which is very different from anything I've done. But Persepolis,
I
Marjana
know.
Satrapi's, which I think is sort of for me like a perfect political cartoon. It's personal, so it's emotional, and it's political because of what's taking place, but told through this person's independent experience. Political cartoons, specifically editorial cartoons, are probably my least favorite kind of art. And that's primarily because of the environment and constraints within which they have to work. Um, I'm not surprised that that drawing was taken down by the Post, I guess, right? Like, I mean, it's, kind of calling out the owner and everything. I understand that. It was telling to me because that cartoon was for me, like, first of all, it was honest and true, but it was also on a spectrum incredibly tame. Like there was no grounds for it to get taken down, period. But especially, it was had a negative offense to it. And I
But it
think
was
for me, a lot of
directly calling out corruption of three billionaires who are, in some
sure,
cases, owners
if
of major media outlets, and
if anything, it revealed how incredibly sensitive and fragile they are. Because again, it was you know critical, but in a way that to me it
I mean,
wasn't
they're
like a
holding
death blow.
stacks of money, to be able to buy off Trump's
Sure.
support, which is
Yeah.
really showing that not only are the major media, of America corporations and they're beholden to their shareholders, but in this particular case, they have to either make some kind of gesture of support or, in some kind of way, need to be showing their fealty
Yeah.
to administration, or they themselves will suffer. And the suffering means that they will lose money. Like it's all kind of,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I think what is happening, with any art, that I can say from personal experience, what I've witnessed and what I know from other people who've seen the same thing is that there's very much a sort of targeted suppression that's happening to people who, and this isn't just people who make art. I mean, like kind of anybody, if you're commenting or whatever, if you're speaking sort of ill of Trump or ICE or MAGA,
Right.
or like, there's very much a very obvious coordinated throttling of that content, artists included. I think though, again, if you're an editorial cartoonist,
Hmm.
and you're drawing, you're already within a box. There's only so much you can say or do, which is why I think there's some great people who are extremely talented, from the artists that I do know, and I just don't know a lot of cartoonists, but there's some who I have seen who I think are just phenomenal at their craft. And for some of these people, I hope that they also have an alternative outlet for their work outside of the editorial cartoons, because you're already shackled. There's already boundaries that you're not putting on yourself, but that the environment requires.
Yeah.
And which I think is a shame because in this time we're in now, it is, I think, irresponsible for an artist to operate in a place that puts those boundaries on them. And look, I'm saying this very much knowing the fact that I'm being extremely hypocritical because I'm primarily operating in a social media world where there are very obviously boundaries. On a scale, they're way, way more lax than if I
Yeah.
were trying to do a syndicated thing.
Okay, so with all that said, have you had moments where you have been worried about what you're saying, or that you have offended a particular person, or that you're calling them out in a way that is going to create backlash for you? And if so, what might be your responses or steps to address that?
I don't know. I mean, I try to be well, first of all, I don't, for the people who are my intended targets, no, I do not. I don't have any
You don't have a problem
worries.
calling Donald Trump dumb, which you've done in a lot of
Well,
drawings.
no, I mean, because he is. So I'm not gonna worry about that. I don't care about any of that. The
Yeah.
only thing I do, if there's anything I worry about, and to be honest, I wouldn't say like I'm hyper concerned necessarily is I am also cognizant of the fact that, you know, I'm a middle-aged, straight, white guy. And so I do try to make sure that I'm aware of the perspective that I have. That
Your privileges.
absolutely, right? And there's some that you are aware of, most that you know you might not be that inform what you're doing. So I do try to be cognizant of that. And not that I'm worried about, you know, I don't know, dropping a slur or something, but more that I just like understand that my while I am drawing fast and emotional, very much just from my own point of view, that that's not everyone's point of view, which is largely completely fine. But I also want to make sure that I'm not getting in the way or stepping on the toes of the people that I'm supposedly trying to advocate for who don't look like me, who don't have my lived experience. I'm not trying to
People who are
like
more vulnerable. Yeah.